Balenciaga's on my feet, stay in. Oh boy, fresh. I got these pointers, neck and wrist, stay in. Oh boy, fresh. I'm always fresher than the rest, stay in. Oh boy, fresh. Since 96, I'm in this game, stay in. Oh boy, fresh. Balenciaga's on my feet, stay in. Oh boy, fresh. I got these pointers, neck and wrist, stay in. Oh boy, fresh. I'm always fresher than the rest, stay in. Oh boy, fresh. Since 96, I'm in. Welcome to another episode of No Cap Reacts. I'm your man Bailey, aka Mr. Go Get 'em. We back with another episode of Sunday Night Live. So I actually just figured out something about my system, and everything moving forward should actually be fine. Sound should actually be fine. No need for these damn headphones anymore. We about to be moving and grooving, and I prefer to do it like this anyway because I can have a real conversation. I ain't got to listen to myself. I can just speak my mind, speak my piece, and get this shit up off my chest. So tonight on Sunday Night Live, we got a little something different, but it's kind of the same. It's a little different, but it's kind of the same. So quite often we get on this platform and we talk about dating. I try to do my best to help people improve in dating, both men and women, in order to make sure that, when we date, we do it correctly. Most people don't date correctly. So, I try to do my best to help people understand the dynamics between men and women because it is actually different. And when you have differences in dating, there are a lot of things that actually can and will get lost. So, I found this video. This video tells the origins of dating from where dating actually started to how dating got to where we're at today. Are we gonna get through the entire video today? Maybe, maybe not. We're gonna find out. For some reason, I'm showing that my internet is at a super slow bit rate. Which is why initially you probably saw that I was on here and then I was gone. Sound wasn't fully coming through, etc., etc., etc. I think I'm pretty positive I've actually already fixed that, but we're gonna find out. At the end of the day, let's go ahead, throw on the video. Through the process, clearly, as you guys know, most times, if something, I usually stop it to, give my commentary. But outside of that, yeah, we just gonna go through. We back. It's Sunday Night Live. Again, I'm your man Bailey, aka Mr. Go Get 'em. Tonight, we are literally gonna go over the origins of dating. Like literally, I'm talking about back to when marriages and things, shotgun weddings, parents choosing who you date, so forth and so on. Get my chair. My damn dog is all over me. All right, and before we get it started, make sure you like the video, give a thumbs up. Stay tuned. I'm pretty sure you guys are seeing the series over being polyamorous. I am still looking for someone that is part of OnlyFans. I'm also looking for any sort of working girls. I'm also looking for single mothers. And anyone that's single, I'm just going to start doing a lot of interviews and covering a lot of different topics and subjects again, getting this channel and this page back to where it used to be. Outside of that, I'm going to shut up. Let's go.
Back to the show. To contextualize the modern dating scene, let's look to history. For much of dating history, heterosexual courtship was all about getting a ring on that finger. Most women weren't allowed to work and thus sought.
Okay, so let's go with the wasn't allowed to work. It wasn't the fact that they weren't allowed to work, because many women actually did work. Women just also chose not to work. Two, our society at that point in time wasn't so dead set on money, but you're gonna find out real quick. I know it's good now, fool. That's what I just fixed. You're gonna find out real quick how greed, money, and dating have all went hand in hand. So, for history, the truth is always going to be in the pudding. Let's go.
Financial stability via marriage, while men were incentivized by that sweet, sweet dowry.
What's wrong with her? She's beautiful, she's rich, she's got huge tracts of land.
Courtship was largely a private enterprise arranged between families, with women essentially.
Understand the word enterprise. Enterprise is business. This was a business dating back in the day. Whether you like it or not, it was a business.
Functioning as bartering tools to solidify social alliances. Potential candidates were evaluated based on class and social status. Sociologist Eva Iluz also notes that most young people were pressured to accept their first reasonable option. Love was nice if it happened, but this was mostly a regimented transaction.
Not all of us can afford to be romantic. I've been offered a comfortable home and protection. A lot to be thankful for.
Okay, so as you guys see, honestly, dating back then was more about safety, security, and financial advancement. Being able to find someone that was going to financially take you on, take care of you, and again, it was there for the tradition of prolonging your last name.
I'm 27
Not beauty, not love, or any of that.
years old. I've no money and no prospects.
But then, 1840, Queen Victoria and legendary wife guy Prince Albert entered the chat.
For me, this is not a marriage convenience.
No. I think it will be a marriage of inconvenience.
They were famously head over heels in love, a romance that only got more legendary when Victoria publicly mourned Albert for 40 years after his death. Royals, as you may know, were basically the original influencers. So this romance, coupled with the mainstreaming of Enlightenment ideals about personal fulfillment, helped make marrying for romantic love start to seem important and even noble. For upper-class women, this era of courtship meant suitors leaving calling cards and arranging chaperoned meetings. Like Bumble, but your frowning stepmom is also there, just sitting and judging. What's important is that courtship now entailed assessing compatibility between families, personalities, and so on, rather than just settling for the first Joe Schmo who threw a stone at your window. Working class women, somewhat empowered by the wage economy, were less bound by ceremony, and often lived in apartments too small for men to come calling anyway. They met men on their way to work, in shops, or at music halls. They dated, had sex, juggled a bevy of admirers, and it wasn't uncommon to be pregnant on your wedding day. Dating around wasn't just a fun time. It was also considered essential to finding the right match and what Iluz calls the emergence of a self-regulated market of encounters. But here's the thing. In the dating culture that emerged at the end of the 19th century, money became even more central to the direct interactions of the couple. Because now, dating meant going on dates. And going on dates tends to cost money. As scholar Beth L. Bailey explains, courtship was largely construed and understood in models and metaphors of modern industrial capitalism. As dates moved from living rooms into dance halls and bars, money was what Bailey calls.
So, you guys always talking about you want old-fashioned dating? Well, technically speaking, the original old-fashioned dating would be a Netflix and chill because you weren't going out. Going out on dates is actually very modern. It is, again, and I've said this for a long time, that is a tradition that started in the maybe 30s, 40s, as late as the 50s. It probably became more socially accepted in the 50s. Hence, obviously, there's video here, so that's 50s, late 40s, early 50s. Dating as you know it, yeah. This video opens so many doors.
A symbolic currency of exchange, where
Symbolic currency of exchange. Remember that.
men needed to pay to gain access to women's company. By the 1920s,
I've said this before. Men have never had it easy. We pretty much have to pay for everything we want and do. We have to earn our way because guess what? If you're a broke ass, you can't pay for nothing. If you're a nobody, you can't do it. If you do not pick yourself up and become the best version of yourself one way or another, you get access to nothing. This has been the exact same thing that has gone on since the beginning of time.
She notes, dating provided a new frontier for public competition through consumption. As a result, young people started defining themselves as commodities. Men by how much they could afford to spend on theater tickets, women by how much they were worth spending on. This fittingly coincided with the explosive growth of the consumer economy, which transformed ideals of romantic love. If men now needed to have money to burn on vaudeville shows, women now needed to look like pre-war Kardashians. That's in large part due to the increased sexualization of women in the media and advertising.
Women, your sexuality has been sold. You guys have been sold on this since the beginning of time. This is the beginning of the beauty industry. This is the beginning of makeup, hair, nails, etc. As much as you guys try to say that you do it for yourselves, unfortunately, you now see the history of it was sold to you. You guys have clearly 100% bought in, and this is the number one. The beauty industry makes out earns so many other businesses, and you're trained to do so.
Industries like cosmetics relied on enticing imagery to create demand for new products. As Ilus notes, before the 1920s, the word sexy was actually considered derogatory. It was more preferable to shack up with someone who was, say, super moral or reliable. But as mass media began pumping out images of eroticized female bodies, and soon enough, male bodies, sexual attraction began figuring into people's choices in a much bigger way. As marital selection became increasingly less based on your social status and more on subjective things like sex appeal, the ability to land a regulation hottie started factoring more into people's conceptions of individuals.
Imagine that if we would continue to go off of social status, you know how many more people would actually steal, or how many people would actually be married? Think about that. If you remove the social status away from it, you know how many other people would actually be married today?
Self-worth. As Ilus puts it, under modernity, sexuality thus becomes closely intertwined with social value. But of course, nothing spoils the sex party quite like a pair of world wars. Couples were split apart, with courtship relegated out of the dance hall and back to the post office. But it went beyond these basic logistics. The idea of a chaste woman who stayed home loyally awaiting the troops' return became hugely popular, especially during World War I. And that chaste woman became something of a commodified trophy for men down in the trenches to fantasize and sing about. My girl back home.
World War I started in 1914.
A blue-eyed kid, I liked her a lot. While the fellas were away, working class and middle class women also spent more time in the public sphere, doing man's.
Yeah, I want you to keep this in mind. It's 1914. Again, they said women weren't allowed to work, but in 1914 they were working. He's clearly saying working class women. Again, when you actually pay attention to history and you actually listen and you also look at the dates, you find out there was actually never a time in the history of this entire planet that women have actually not worked.
Stuff like going to
But there is a time where women were never taxed. There is a difference.
Job and sometimes wearing trousers. But especially after World War II, the return of the troops, plus rising pressure to marry early, pushed a lot of women back into the home. Some of the rush to get married was out of anxiety about the scarcity of eligible men post war, which reinforces a marketplace vibe. But this also had other important economic implications. Whereas married women had once been treated like pure commodities, housewives were now the main consumers of commodities. Men went to work, produced goods, accumulated capital, and their wives spent that money buying more goods. Thus, the marriage industrial complex became vital to keeping the consumption driven 1950s economy humming. Meanwhile, for the burgeoning youth consumer culture of the 1950s, going steady became a coming of age.
So I want you guys to listen to that. Marriage was a business. Marriage was then created as a business to keep the economy going because the men were going to war. So the more men you sent to war, the faster you actually wanted to get them married because as long as they were married, they were sending the money home to the wives. They were sending it home to the wives. The wives were spending the money. Get it? Ladies and gentlemen, I have a proof. Listen to what is being said here, because if you follow the money, you will find out everything.
Dating ritual in its own right, complete with varsity pins and a sexy game called Two Straws, One Milkshake. By the mid 1950s, 1 in 10 middle school students would go steady at least once before turning 11. Of course, I better than double those stats myself. Going steady is essentially the origin for how we conceive of dating today in all its serial monogamy. And make no mistake, just as it was for their parents, consumption was inextricable from this boom in young love. Shopping and investment became metaphors for dating. You needed a car to neck in, a class ring to exchange, a Letterman jacket to drape over your date's shoulders, records to dance to, and turntables to play them on.
Look at how they literally sold us everything. It is sold to us. Society. They literally put things in place that make money for themselves. And they sell us these different ideas in order to get us to jump on this damn bandwagon of bullshit. And we go for it.
Meals at the malt shop, and so on. And dating remains a consumption-driven activity to this day, even if we've swapped banana splits for charcuterie boards and class rings for Netflix passwords. Now, the 1960s and 70s, as you probably know, brought varying degrees of free love and rebellion against the previous decade's sexual and romantic constraints. But by the 1980s, we saw a return to conservative values in pretty much every element of American society. It's around this time that the 1950s were reimagined as a nostalgic utopia of happy families born from people who just lost their virginity.
Which people swear, oh, I want an old-fashioned relationship. And to you, that is considered an old-fashioned relationship. But at the end of the day, that was actually a very short-term, short-lived time frame of what an old-fashioned relationship was, or traditional relationship, because prior to that, there typically was no such thing as a traditional relationship. A true traditional relationship was your parents chose who you went with.
The free market obsessed 80s also saw the ascendancy of dating technology, like computer based dating services or the truly heinous video dating.
Hi, I'm Maurice. I'm an executive by day and a wild man by night.
These companies promised to help you, say, do comparison shopping of potential dates from the comfort and privacy of your own home. Again, we see the language of capitalism continuing to permeate dating.
And we're
then
being
came
sold.
the internet. Now, technically, the earliest
being
version of
sold.
computer-based dating came from Harvard in 1965, when some students created Operation Match a half century before your favorite sunscreen enthusiast would start your least favorite social networking site in hopes of getting laid. This 75-question-long survey helped tens of thousands of people learn about well-suited potential new mates in its first year alone. And its algorithmic match process has since been emulated by modern dating sites. These companies also used the knowledge gained from those questionnaires to mine consumer data, a practice that would only grow in the years to come. As the internet entered more homes, companies like AOL funneled people into chat rooms, bulletin boards, and so on based on mutual interests, which inevitably led to dating. The first dating site, Kiss.com, launched in 1994, followed shortly thereafter by Match.com in 1995. And by 1998, Nora Ephron made
You've Got Mail
with the film You've Got Mail. Side note, we actually made a video about how that delightful film is secretly fascist, so check it out. Now, early online daters encountered plenty of stigma and were often painted as desperate. But the more online our lives have gotten, the more mainstream online dating has become. By 2007, Americans alone spent $500 million on online dating services.
Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. $500 million on online dating services. That has nothing to do with the fact of how much money you're also spending as you go out on these dates. I've said this long before I ever even did a podcast. Me dating, since I've started, since the inception of dating, I've bought brand new, probably like one Mercedes and 2 Cadillacs. It's absolutely ridiculous how much dating costs. For most women, you guys will never understand that aspect because you don't pay for the dates. As a man and the things that we go through, yes, just like most cases, sites are free to you, but for men, they are not. If a man is truly looking to find someone, he is going to pay on a website.
Making it the second most profitable sector of the internet economy. And we all know what the highest industry is.
Prawn.
The one you have to open up
POR.
an anonymous browser to go look at, so it's not an industry, so that if your mom uses your computer, that thing doesn't happen again like it did that one time. So it comes as no surprise that online dating services are expected to rake in over $3 billion this year in the United States alone, especially in light of how a cornucopia of new dating sites and apps have cropped up, boasting new innovations like Tinder's gamified swiping interface or Bumble's woman-led dating model. A benefit of online dating is the way it creates opportunities for people from specific communities to connect with each other. LGBTQ plus folks, people in rural areas, elderly or disabled people, hell, even fly fishermen. It can also be a relatively unthreatening way to meet new people, and sometimes to screen out potentially bad matches. But we see something else going on that we think does a lot to explain why online dating can feel so hard and occasionally pretty depressing. Now, we've talked about the intersection between dating and economics, from dowries to theater dates to the consumer demand for engagement rings that cost a month's salary. But we'd argue that online dating basically takes the commodification of the actual act of dating that cropped up around the turn of the century and turned it up to 11.
Put it up to 11.
11, exactly.
How? Well, as scholars Rebecca D. Hino, Nicole B. Ellison, and Jennifer L. Gibbs note in their article, Relation Shopping, dating sites are typically designed like online shopping platforms, evoking the sensation of literally window shopping for a match. They write that the functionality and design of online dating sites encouraged participants to adopt a marketplace orientation towards the online dating experience. Now, that
Okay, in other words, to make that make sense, it's like window shopping. You can go to a mall every single day and window shop and never buy anything. Okay? Imagine doing that in dating. They've inflated your thought process to feel like your worth is so high that no matter how many people you swipe on, that person's never enough because you always feel like you can swipe on someone else and they're going to be an upgrade. They're going to be better. Therefore, you never actually end up truly committing to anyone because you are forever in search of a greater one. That would be like back in the day, finding an actual king, but refusing to marry that king because you felt there would be another king that would be more suited to you. Even though that king was willing to give you everything under the sun.
Doesn't necessarily make Tinder sinister, but it could have real implications for the kinds of relationships you're most likely to find. In Relation Shopping, the authors write that online dating may encourage an attitude where prospective partners are commodified as products to be sold, assessed, purchased, or discarded. Being discarded is probably fine if you were only looking for a one-time hookup, but it lends a depressing air if you're in search of a long-term relationship. Ehlers notes that it also leads to hypercritical assessments that render potential partners commensurable, measurable, and comparable with each other. And if sexual attractiveness became a big deal in the 20s, it's only been magnified in importance because these apps facilitate a lightning fast, superficial decision-making process, typically based on a few flattering photos.
And the bad part about it is the way dating has become today is women, as you know, were the ones who were chosen for their beauty and what they look like and the status or the beauty that they hold was their status. Whereas now, when you take dating, women are holding men at the same standard of beauty as if he is not attractive, you refuse to deal with him. Whereas a man, his attractiveness actually doesn't tell you whether or not he is upstanding, if he's safety, security, or a provider. He's just a good looking man, which is a huge, huge difference and could leave you wanting more in the future and making the wrong choice.
Online dating also massively expands your pool of potential matches, creating a sense of interchangeability. How many Daniels can you match with before they all blend into the same guy in cargo shorts? And this replicates the overall sensation we have as consumers today, where we're similarly empowered to choose between a dizzying array of 125 toothpaste brands. What's more, in the logic of online dating, potential matches are reduced and scrutinized by isolated attributes, making them easier to reject or discard. Research has found that the ease of discarding online dating partners may even continue into a relationship. That's partly because of the lack of an integrated social environment, these shared friends or communities, which makes it feel easier to ghost. Overall, Earloops argues internet dating sites display the consumerist logic of increasingly narrowing, defining, and refining tastes and comparing among alternative possibilities. While it's obviously good to be picky when it comes to choosing.
So, in layman's terms, what used to happen is when you met someone, they were part of your exact same social standard, your social group, who you were around. They were limited. You were limited to your city or your state or your group of friends or family members, and that's how you found someone. But with online dating and the easeability of being able to swipe, 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 and you can go out the kitchen, Gigi. You can go from city to city, state to state, and the fact that being flown out is one of the newest, latest, greatest terms. A millionaire in Miami on vacation from his wife will fly out the country girl in Idaho to basically come get dick down for a wonderful weekend, unbeknownst to her that one, she's dealing with a married millionaire that is only using her for her body. And then she's going to go back to Idaho with the thought process of, if I can pull that millionaire, I deserve any other millionaire, which also now limits your ability to date those that are in your social circle, your city, your state, or your town. Therefore, making it harder for you to be able to date, period, because you now have this new standard that isn't real, but it is now your standard, which is why so many people, so many guys, the Kevin Samuels of the world, are telling you how delusional it is for you to think that you would need more than what you have right there in front of you, because it is not real. It is not sustainable. But it is the thought process that is actually being taught to us and to society as a whole, that this is the new standard. And since this is the new standard, and everyone always says I refuse to settle, well, ladies and gentlemen, you're doing the epitome of settling because you have nothing. We are at the most single that this country has ever been in the history. And it is increasing. Becoming single is something that is increasing. Women are becoming more single at a higher rate than ever before. And the reason we use the term of women, women outnumber men 11-1. So if women are increasingly becoming single and they outnumber men, that is a lose, lose, lose times 11 times game.
Choosing a long-term partner, applying consumerist logic to actual human beings seems less picky, more icky. And it's not just your potential dates that are being commodified. The authors of Relation Shopping also note that online dating encourages self-commodification via a tangible and explicit assessment of one's own perceived desirability in ways less likely to occur with traditional face-to-face communication. That is to say, participants in online dating are constantly receiving reams of data that cause them to assess their own objective value in the dating world, which can feel pretty harsh. So, what does this all say about us? Well, modernity, Iluz explains, has been all about the rise of the rational in just about every aspect of life, from psychology to weight loss stats. Online dating reflects the rationalization of love, where we're encouraged to assess potential dates as laundry lists of attributes rather than messy, complex human beings. The endless supply of consumer choices that defines late capitalism has been effectively mapped onto human relationships. While some of us may romanticize the 1950s model of going steady long term, the tech we're using to find relationships may be counterproductive in achieving that goal. Think about it. After World War II, women settled into marriage quickly due to the scarcity of eligible men. In contrast, the seeming abundance of matches provided by online dating might incline us to not settle down at all, or to discard a potential mate simply because there might be a shinier object just a click away.
And the problem is, it's actually not true, because if women are still actually it is increased, whereas then it was like 3 or 4 to 1. It is now 11 to 1, and now because it is 11 to 1, you literally have more women than what you have men. So there is a scarcity. So if you thought it was bad in the 50s, it's even worse now. And then let's go ahead and throw in the fact of money and the economy, and how then a family could live off of one income, and it's literally at the point that you pretty much require two incomes, but so many women feel that one income should be enough because this man needs to make well over 6 figures in order to do so, which 6 figures is still less than 10%. There's a reason we call them 1%ers of the world. It's less than 10%. You're literally getting to, once you get to 175,000, you are in the 1 percentile of people that are making that amount of money, where the average family is only making $73,000. The average family in the United States makes $73,000 combined. So to find a single human being that is making almost 3 times that by himself shows you the scarcity of such men, which is why when you take the millionaires that you guys swarm to go to Florida to go be with, and the guys that are able to fly you out, they're able to fly you out because they are very scarce. There are very few of them. And just like he's doing it for you, he's doing it for 10 other chicks. And guess what? He has the option to do that, and the option to not want to settle down whatsoever, because at this point, at 11 to 1, he has the pick of the litter. You don't. And just because he flew you out means nothing. He's not trying to wipe you. He's one nighting you, maybe a weekend at a time, 2 to 3 times out of the year. And the fact that you're so accepting of that isn't good. It's making dating as a whole a worse situation than what it should be or what it could be. Because the moment that you start saying no to being flown out to have this fake illusion of an experience in lifestyle for 1, 2, 3 nights, and expecting to be taken to these crazy outlandish places with a man that is not planning on keeping you in the first place, will actually stop it and allow you to see the good men that you say do not exist happen to be right there where you're at. You're just not choosing to pay attention to them because you're being blinded by something that isn't real, and allowing yourself to feel like you deserve more, when at the end of the day, even what you're getting isn't yours.
Don't get us wrong. Exploring your options is great, but when it's treated like the same process as finding the right Netflix show, it starts to feel a little cynical. And the commodification of human beings on dating sites goes even deeper. Hinge might brand itself as the dating app designed to be deleted, but it's actually in all the app's best interest to keep you scrolling through face after face. And their casino style interfaces make it all too easy to waste an evening doing just that. Ultimately, these companies make a great deal of money by collecting super valuable data about some of the most intimate aspects of your life. After all, these aren't old friends interested in helping you find love, they're tech platforms interested in earning a buck or a billion. So it seems that dating has become more complicated and more commodified than ever before. Finding a mate, a prospect once simply determined by your family's financial capital, is now an important means of affirming your worth, of broadcasting your individual social and or cultural capital. Qualities like your sense of humor or your great hair, Ilu says, they'll start to become indexes of your inner value. In other words, if you used to be able to blame your bankrupt dad for hurting your chances of landing a wife, now you're implicitly told to blame yourself for not being witty enough in your About Me section. So, what are we supposed to do? We're years off from designing our perfect partner in a lab. Free love communes are harder and harder to find, and sex robots can be hacked and turned into murder bots. So, are we stuck as self aware commodities in an ever expanding marketplace of increasingly disposable romantic products? Well, barring some kind of cultural backlash, online dating will probably keep becoming increasingly intrinsic to our courtship rituals. We can't change that. But maybe recognizing the unusual historical moment of dating that we're in can help us be a little less hard on ourselves when the process feels hopeless. And maybe thinking about how weird it is to treat yourself like a commodity can help us be a little less judgmental towards men who post photos of themselves with tigers. Because at the end of the day, we're all looking for some iteration of the same thing: human connection, whether for a night or forever. Well, that and romantic partners who look like they're auditioning for a Tiger King biopic. But what do you guys think? Do you wish your romantic life was still determined by dowries? Is online dating killing romance? Or is shopping for dates fun and empowering? Let us know in the comments. Big thanks to our patrons for all your support. And
All right. So I would say, at least for me, and watching this video, it was hella eye opening because it actually showed what dating has been relegated to, what dating has become, or what dating has turned into as a whole, and how, as much as you feel like you are dating, you actually are not. You are a commodity. You are someone being sold a dream. And unfortunately, you're buying into said dream. Dating and relationships have become harder, not because of the people, but because of the business that it has become. We unfortunately live in a country where everything has turned into a dollar. Okay? What are you doing? Damn dog. Under my desk. I know you ain't chewing on my cord down here. So, how do you date when the person you should be dating um isn't being honest with you? And when I say being honest, I don't mean with between us as men and women, but not being honest with you based on the fact that the current society, our country that we are in, is using dating and dating platforms, and has been when since its initial creation. Did I turn off my camera? Oh Lord. Hold on. Hold on. How did that come undone? Should come back on. Let's go, baby. Oh, man. Man, well, it looks like we might be ending this a little early for who knows what reason. Gigi, what was you chewing on? I got to jump in here and figure out what my camera went off. But at the end of the day, thanks for tuning in to another episode of No Cap Reacts. I'm your man, Bailey. This was Sunday Night Live. Balenciaga's on my feet, stay in. Oh, boyfriend. I got these pointers, neck and wrist, stay in. Oh, boyfriend. I'm always fresher than the rest, stay in. Oh, boyfriend.